Hello and welcome to all my days fourth video. Always get confused with which ones we're on. So today we're going to be looking at hazards and projectile behaviour. So we'll get some shooting coming out of our player. First of all, we're going to have a look at some hazards. So I think I don't have much of a level if I look at my scene. Zoom out a bit, not much of a level. Let's try. I'm going to create some spikes here or something like that to kind of sort of like quickly get them in here. So there is ways and means that you can do this. You can create a brand new tile map from here and create it as hazards and put the layer as hazards, and I'll show you how to form that in the script just little bit later, or we can just add some hazards in with like a box collider and stuff like that. What I'm going to do is stay away from the grids stuff at the moment because not all of my grids are 16 by 16, so that will change the size of my tile map and mess up my game, which I don't really want. So what I'm going to do is find my assets, and you should have your own assets. I'm just trying to find. Oh, there we go. You've got a spike there. Have a look at this. Oof, rough. Let's have a look. So if I just change that to 16, change that to no point and apply. That should make it a little bit bigger. And then I can add in my spike here. There we go. And what I can also do is you can hold Command or Control depending on your keyboard. Wait, don't zoom in that much, so we can just move this across, and it's like, there we go. What I'm going to do is try and put it in the middle as much as I can, and then we can kind of scale this up so it can kind of fit that kind of 16 by 16 size. Let's have a look what that does. Oh yeah, that's pretty good actually. It's not bad at all. Cool, lovely. And what I'm going to do is just duplicate this one, and then duplicate that one, and lovely, lovely. So I've got my 3 spikes. I'm going to create an empty here. Name this just spikes, and add all 3 of my spikes into my spikes layer, so it keeps it all nice and clean, so you can see them all living within this as well. And that's absolutely fine. What I can do with each of these is not on the empty, but on each of these spikes is select them, and we're going to look for a polygon collider 2D. There we go. I'm not too fussed about that really. That looks okay. If we can edit this if we want to, and I can show you quickly how we can do that. If we click on the sprite here down in our project, and we can go up to sprite editor, we can actually go into custom physics shape, and as you can see, the custom physics shape at the moment is like this block, hence why we've kind of got this blockiness when we clicked on the colliders here with this. So what we can do is, I've lost my sprite editor now, there we go, there it is actually create some points. So let's try and create those points. Oh, there we go. Oh, I get these wrong. Down like that, and that can come across like that, and then we can have one more point that can kind of come up like that. Lovely. And as you can see, it will now hopefully change my polygon collider to fit better around these kind of spikes, or these pixel spikes. Click apply, pop onto here, click my spikes. Oh, it hasn't really changed, has it? Let's highlight these ones. Let's go remove component. Let's re-add that component, see if it changes at all. There we go. So it just needed to change around. And we can see now that if our character was kind of close to these spikes, they could have had death. But now I've changed the physics. We can see that the physics goes around these spikes a lot better. Lovely, cool, fantastic. So really happy about that. So what we can do now is I could name these hazards, but I'm not. I'm just going to keep them as spikes. We've got the collider on them. I'm happy with that. Let's check is trigger on these, because these will be a trigger, so we need to make sure of that. And then we probably need to create a layer for our hazards as well. So if we go here, we haven't got a one for our hazards yet. So we go new, add layer, sorry. Go to and name this hazards. Make sure we can spell it correctly, because we'll need to reference it within our script. So we go to hazards, click on spikes, and then we can just go to the layer of hazards. Lovely. And yes, change children as well. So each of these will talk to each other down here as the parents of the child. Cool, lovely. So next thing we're going to do, we're going to quickly jump back into our player movement script and go under our death method. Don't need to restart that. Cool, lovely. So this is our player script, and under our death, what we need to say is that we're already getting the mask or the layer mask and grabbing the mask layer of enemy. All we now need to do is go comma, and then we say, oh, we want to look for another one, and that's going to be exactly how we spelt it within our layers. Call it hazards, quote it just like that. Lovely. We can save this. And if we jump back into Unity, Unity will compile. Lovely, lovely. That should all be fine. Let us press play. There we go, in our game, and then hopefully if I jump, boom, death has become me here on my spikes. Lovely. I probably should walk into them as well to check if that works as well. Create a bit of a game, a bit of an error for myself here because where my spikes sit, but dunk, there we go, death as well. Lovely. Cool, so we're going to save that, and we can zoom out there. Good thing about this is that I can move my spikes, which I think I probably will. And just hold command, go pop, over to there. Lovely. And I was just going to have to extend my game really to make it a little bit more easier for me to get to. Lovely. Cool. I was just making sure they're actually touching the ground there. So it gives my player a little bit of leeway before ultimate death of the enemy or the spikes. Cool. Lovely. So in the player, let's talk about the projectile with our player. And so our projectile, when we mean our projectile, it means we're going to shoot something out. So what we're going to do, we can create an empty for this. So we're going to create an empty, and we can call this projectile spawn point. And you might think, oh, these are really long names, but once you do it, you know, and you can reference it in the code, you know what it is. So I would quite like being really nice and clear about what I'm on about. So with this projectile spawn point, I'm going to place this on the hand of my player. So he'll be shooting things out from his hands of whatever they may be. Or whatever that projectile is, and that's entirely up to you. Cool, what we can do is save that, and save that it saves that position as well. So we need to add some kind of projectile into our scene, and we can save that as a prefab, and then we can place it under our projectile spawn point. So let's have a look in the assets. I think I did see some bomb. There we go. Let's have a look. 12 by 12. What we can do is just change this. Change that to 12. Make sure we can go. Where are we looking for? Point, apply. And I'm going to drag this sprite into. Whoa, massive. So we can size this down a little bit more. And we can use this as a preview. We can put that as, let's try 8. Let's click apply. Oh, no, that's even bigger. Sorry. Let's try 32. Other way around. Bonk. Yeah, maybe just a little bit smaller. Let's try 36. 48. Yeah, I'm going to 48 is absolutely fine. So he'll shoot out this little bomb thing. Almost looks like a fireball from Super Mario. Cool, lovely. So I'm going to name this. I can name it, but I'm going to name it my projectile, so I don't get confused by anything. That's really, really good. So we'll keep our naming conventions all good as well. And I'm also going to create a new layer for this, which is also going to be called projectile. projectile, and then I can actually assign that to projectile. Lovely. Then once we've done that, we can have a look at what this can actually collide with. So we can go up to Edit, Project Settings, and Physics 2D. Scroll down to our Layer Collision Matrix here. And what we can see is we want pretty much, we can uncheck all of them apart from our enemy, ground, hazards, and projectiles. So the projectile itself, fine. Hazards, yep, we want to keep that. Enemies, we want to keep that. And projectiles itself, connect to itself, that's absolutely fine. The ground, oh, we'll keep the ground. UI, water, UI, water, raycast, and then turn all those off. Nice and easy, just like that. Lovely, lovely. Command and save, or control and save as well with your game as well. Lovely, lovely. So what we need to do is I'm probably going to quickly add a collider to this. I'm not sure, or should we? Let's go with getting some functionality in here first with the actual spawning of our projectile. So what I can do is I'm going to prefab this as well. So I'm going to find my prefab folder, which, oh my days, I don't actually have. Would you look at that? Okay, so we're going to create a new folder and we're going to call this prefabs. And this essentially is a prefabrication, so something that's already been made or been created. So our player needs to be a prefab as well. So if we double click into prefabs, our projectile can become a prefab. So this can be used over and over again. And we want our player to be used over and over again as well for different levels, etc., etc. Cool, we're just going to see if there's any overrides. No, that's absolutely fine. And see if there's any overrides. No, that's absolutely fine. Cool, so now we have our prefabs all sorted. What we can do is we can have a look into our player movement and see about spawning this little bomb fella. So let's go into our scripts. Lovely, lovely. And we're going to add some new variables at the top. So let's start with game object. This can be public game object. And I'm going to call this just my projectile. Nice and easy, semicolon. And then we are going to have a public transform. And that is going to be our projectile spawn point. So exactly how we spot it, so we know where it's going and what it's going to go and do. So we can save those two, and we can assign these now. It's really good to keep this in good practice. So they're all signed up and it's all plumbed in already. So with our game object projectile, so we can go back into Unity. This will compile, and we can click on the player script. So if we click on the player script, we can see that our player movement is now looking for the projectile, which is, we're going to drag it out of our prefabs. Boom. And the projectile spawn point, which is actually attached to our player, we can put there. Lovely, fantastic. Then we can save those settings just there. Once we've done that, we can jump back into our script. Lovely, lovely, lovely. So what we're going to do is just under update, that'll be fine. We can have something called void on fire. So this is already a button that we have spoken about within our bindings. I can show you where that is really quickly. So we go to Unity and it's like, well, why are you using the word on fire, not shoot or anything like that? Because this is already listed within our player inputs, which we can see here. If I squiggle my mouse around, you can see on fire already exists within the input system, because with our input system, if we double click onto it here, we can see fire, and we can see that it's already, if we do the drop down for on fire, we've got the trigger on our gamepad, left button, primary touchpad on the touch screen, trigger for a joystick, or a primary action button for an XR, so VR controller. So it already exists within the content of our action buttons, so we don't need to add or need to call it anything else. That's why we're calling it on fire. And again, because this is a button, we need to put this as an input value. There we go. And we'll call this just value once again. Cool, lovely, fantastic. Once we've got void on fire, we need to say our live statement. So we're just going to copy this and paste this at the front there. Lovely. Because this button will be turned off once we die, which is really which will be good. We don't want to be able to fire things once we're dead. That might be a little bit weird. And so once we've done that, we can instantiate. So instantiate is almost like, I always use the word, so if I type it up here, it's like instantiate. The best way to sort of describe instantiate is instantly make something appear within your game that's come from your files, so from your project files. So we want to instantiate in, quite rightly, is our projectile firstly. Then with instantiate, it's like, well, what is the position? Well, our position is going to be our projectile spawn point dot position. And then we can just say the rotation is going to be just normal. So transform dot rotation, that's not changing, but we still need to state what's happening with it there. Cool, lovely. We can save this and we can have a look at our functionality and see how well we're going on with it. How we're getting with it. Lovely. I've already plumbed those things in, I think. That shouldn't be an issue. Lovely, that's fine. If I press play. Lovely, and then I should, we're going to ignore this projectile that's here, but if I just click with my mouse as I move, so do, and click, there we go, I can spawn all of these instances of our projectile clones. Lovely, fantastic, that's working. So we need to get some movement on this. Let me just delete this out of this scene now, it's a prefab. And save the game. That's absolutely fantastic. So we need to get some movement within our prefab. So if we go to our prefabs folder, click onto this, we're going to add a couple of components, and actually I am going to put that back in my game actually, because then I can add some things to it. So first thing I'm going to do is add a rigid body. So we're going to go rigid body. Oops, I've got caps lock on for some reason. Rigid body 2D, lovely, lovely, lovely. We'll do continuous detection for collisions, and we will also add a box collider 2D as well. And as you can see, hasn't quite gone around it. I'm just going to go and edit that just a teeny touch. So that box collider goes around it just there. Lovely, click off. Fantastic, so that's around that all nicely. We can save that game again as well. We want to add no gravity scale to our rigid body as well, just in case. And now we can create a script for this and add some functionality, add some motion to it. So let's go to our scripts. We're going to add our third script. C# script, and we can just name this projectile. If we name it all the same things, we know it's going to go in the same place. Lovely, and we're also going to add our projectile script to our projectile game object. So if you do this, so I'll show you, for example, so if I drag my script here and add it to projectile, which we can see at the bottom here, we can now go up to overrides. This means our prefab isn't saved. So if we go to overrides, drop down, we can see all of these things that we've added. So yeah, added the rigid body, box collider, and the script. Let's apply all to those, and it will resave the prefab. Okay. So once we drag that thing in, it will all have all of these components added onto it. Cool, lovely. So let's jump into our projectile script, which is all brand shiny and new. So two things we need to call up initially are the rigid body. So we've done that for our enemy and our player so far, and I'm just going to name this projectile RB for projectile rigid body, using that camel coding or camel casing. And then what we're going to do is also going to do a classic public float and just call this projectile, projectile speed, and we can equal that as 20f, so that's quite quick. Lovely. I'll quickly save that. Within our start, we can say projectile, projectile rigid body is equal to get component, and then we need to grab that rigid body component, parentheses. We can then in our update, go to projectile rigid body. We're going to call up the velocity. With the velocity, we can say, oh, well, that's it's going to be moving, so it's a new vector 2, and that new vector 2 is going to be moved by the projectile speed, and also on the y, it's not going to do anything. Cool, so let's see how this works. Let's quickly save this, jump back into Unity. That will compile through. Let's just drag this out a little bit. And I'm going to actually delete this projectile from here as well, because we should be able to instantiate it in. So, and this time I should be able to move and move back, and boom, there we go, fire. So we've got a couple of things where it is colliding with our, and there we go, there's another functionality error as well. So we've got this cool little mechanic where we can shoot through. It's not quite continuous because we're blasting so many different, it's always trying to move as well, and it's knocked our poor enemy out of whack as well. So there's still some more functionality to put in there. One of them being we need to add shooting both sides, which we will do by using the local scale, and the other one being we need it to collide or ignore or destroy itself once it's done that. Cool, let's jump in and get those last bits and pieces done and sorted. So initially with our projectile, what we can do is that it was shaking. I saw it shaking when it was colliding with things. It's because it hasn't been frozen on the Z rotation. So let's go and find that prefab projectile, and on the rigid body we can just freeze the rotation there, and because we're editing this in within the prefab, we can just quickly save that and we don't need to edit it again. That's all good. Lovely. So within our projectile script we need to call up the player, because the player is going to be able to flip the projectile when it is moved. Okay, so when it is flipped, when the player is flipped, that's when we want to flip the projectile. So what we're going to do is call up exactly how the player script is called here, and I am going to name this player script. Lovely jubbly, and then we are going to create just a private float, and we can call this x speed. And that doesn't need anything there, just like that. So within our start, so just like our rigid body, but a little bit different, we're going to call up the player script, as you can see here, and then we're going to find, it's not a component, it's a find object of type, because it's not attached to the projectile. We've got to look elsewhere, so it's quite heavy on optimization, but it's fine. It's only looking for one script. We're not making a massive game for now. And in our x speed, we're going to dictate what our x speed is going to do right at the start. Well, it's going to equal our player script. And when our player transforms and flips, so transform and what we're looking for, dot local scale. On the x, we are going to times that by the projectile speed, so it will ping back the other way. So the speed will just minus itself and shoot the other way. Cool, lovely. Once we've done that, all we need to do is edit our projectile speed. Down here, so let's get rid of this to our x speed. And we can save that there. Cool, lovely. Let's just make sure this will enable us to shoot right and left. There we go. So bump, bump, and bump, bump. Lovely functionality working, all lovely and nice, fantastic. We'll save our game. So for the last part, let's get those objects destroying, and especially when we shoot our enemy as well. And we can do this within our projectile script as well. So we'll jump back into there. And we can do all of this from an on collision and an on trigger. So we'll create an on trigger enter first. So on trigger enter 2D. There it is. Lovely prompt there. Fantastic. And then all we need to say is if our collision dot tag is equal to enemy. We may need to add an enemy tag, but I can do that just after this. We will destroy the collision. So we'll destroy whatever we collide with, that game object. And then what we can do is that we can also destroy the game object itself, so the projectile itself. Okay, cool. So I'm going to quickly save that. But what I am going to quickly run and do is add an enemy tag to my enemy. So if I click on the enemy here, so that little patrol dude, there he is. He is layered as enemy, but he's not tagged as enemy. As you can see, we need to create one here. So let's list those tags. Let's go dunk, 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 enemy, save, enemy, and tag him as enemy. Lovely, so I don't forget that right at the end. Jump back into our script, and the last thing we're going to do is we're going to add a on collision enter 2D, and with this, whatever we collide with, we will destroy. So destroy game object. Cool. So we have this rule here. So if we will also destroy the enemy, but if we collide with anything else, we will delete ourselves. Cool, lovely. So just one more thing. I think I will come back into my script. I'm just going to edit my projectile and its speed. So let's go oops. Reference of a null object. Let's have a quick. Oh no, not that error again. This wake up error. I'm going to ignore that for now. Hopefully it won't give me any errors when we play our game, but I keep getting this error. And pretty much the fix for it when I googled it was restart Unity, which is quite irritating when you're trying to do a video. So for now, what I'm going to do is enemies tagged as enemy. What was I going to do? Oh, my projectile. So let's find my prefabs, go to my projectile. I'm just going to change the speed of my projectile on the script from 20 to 10. Save the game, press play, and hopefully, number one, I'll be able to shoot, and it will delete. There we go, dunk, there we go. And number two, once I jump up here, I can shoot my enemy. Ah! Okay, and he's killed me. What's happened there? Right, I'm getting this weird error about destroying my enemy. He's definitely collision of tag of enemy. Let's just double check. I didn't spell it wrong, I don't think. Enemy, enemy. He's not a prefab. That shouldn't really matter. Let's go over our collision.tag of enemy. Destroy the collision of the game object. Then we destroy that game object. Yeah, that's all fine, right? So it might be the case of just restarting Unity, which is really, really irritating. Hopefully this works for you, because I'm literally at the end of the video, so I don't really want to go and... Yeah, we're still getting that error. I bet if I close it and open it again. Right, let's just quickly save this. So I'll actually get rid of that error. Save this. Quit Unity. Also close Visual Studio, and I can jump back into here. Let's jump back into this. Hopefully this will fix everything. So if you do get this error, this is a good way of just fixing it. Just restarting Unity so it can compile all of those scripts together again. It shouldn't take too long. Once we've done this, lovely, lovely. That error hasn't popped up again, so hopefully we won't get it anymore. And then, dunk, 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 dunk. Oh, we're still not dying. Let's have a look at our enemy. Is he a trigger? Rigid body, circle collider. is trigger box collider, but that doesn't need to be a trigger because, oh, did we select is trigger on the projectile? Probably not. Now let's have a look. No, we need to select is trigger. Error. So make sure you select is trigger, press play, falls error, my bad. If you were screaming at the screen, give yourselves a pat on the back. Jump and shoot and dead. Lovely, fantastic. That's the end of the video. Make sure you check his trigger on your projectile, and I'll see you very soon.